Hi, everyone, and welcome to Buddhism Talks. Thanks for joining us for our very first video. We're going to be launching videos each week in the months ahead, and I hope you get a chance to join us. And until then, let the Renaissance begin. So I call this video the introduction to everything. So there's three things I want to introduce. Number one, the podcast, obviously. So it's called Buddhism Talks. It is an effort to create a little bit of inspiration on the internet. There's so much stuff out there right now. And I just thought maybe the world could use a little bit more Buddhism. And generally speaking, discussions, whether Buddhist or not, that really support life and creativity and a flourishing of humanity. So that's the goal with Buddhism Talks. Sometimes it'll be a dialogue with people. Sometimes they'll be Buddhist, sometimes they won't. But fundamentally, the goal will be to really refresh and revitalize all of us on the basics of life and truth and happiness and creativity and all those wonderful things. So I'm hoping it'll be a little bit of an oasis where you can come, get inspired, and do some great stuff in your life. So that's the goal. And the other aspect of Buddhism Talks is I'm hoping that it might be a little bit of a fuel for what I call a renaissance. So the reason I mentioned this is when COVID started, it was a pretty difficult time for a lot of people, I think. And I remember reading at the time about the Renaissance. And the Renaissance came after, guess what? Pandemics, war, intellectual darkness, authoritarianism. So what happened after that incredible period of darkness and turmoil was something as powerful and as liberating and as beautiful as the Renaissance, right? And what was the Renaissance? It was a return to a human-centered philosophy, basically. That's what it came out of, is a human-centered philosophy. And out of the Renaissance came a flourishing of art, of culture, of science, of expansion. It opened up the most incredible period of creativity and innovation. So I have held that as encouragement for my own life, that no matter how dark it looks like it's getting, I want to be part of some kind of a renaissance. So I thought I would get up off my bum and do something. And I'm not somebody who actually likes being in front of a camera. I hate microphones, all of that kind of stuff. But it's the one thing that I can do. I can talk about Buddhism and I can share some really inspiring stuff, some great experiences from people. I have wonderful people that I'm going to bring on and have like a little bit of a, talk show podcast in the future. So I've decided to jump in and do this and see wherever that goes. So if this podcast at any point encourages one person, if it picks up one person off the floor, if it generates some kind of hope and creativity in one person, this will all be worth it. I don't need millions. So that's Buddhism Talks. That's basically where its foundations come from, where the goals of it are. Now, the second thing I should introduce is myself. So my name's Lydia Hunziker. I've been practicing Buddhism now for 40 years. And specifically, I practice Nichiren Buddhism within the Soka Gakkai International. And I say that because there are many different types of Buddhism. There really are. I mean, people don't realize, but there's so many different types of Buddhism. And there's also Buddhisms that have priests and temples. And there's some Buddhisms that have different rules in terms of being vegetarian, all of that kind of thing. But specifically, Nichiren Buddhism is the one I decided to practice 40 years ago. So it's probably the only one that I could have practiced 40 years ago. My background as a person was to be very excited about the punk rock movement. I was very much an individualist. I did not like organizations nor religion. So for me to start practice anything, it really needed to be practical and it needed to make sense and definitely needed to be in line with science. I mean, I studied science actually in university for a year. The reason I practice Buddhism is specifically because it's Nichiren Buddhism, specifically within the Soka Gakkai. So the Soka Gakkai is a lay organization of people that practice Buddhism. We do not have any priests. We do not have any temples. So the whole focus of our practice of Buddhism is to really bring out our potential in daily life and to make a difference in our personal environments and ultimately in the world. So it's really grounded on this idea of human revolution and has an incredibly practical, logical, yet profound and unfathomable mention to it. So you'll hear more about that in the future. So the last thing I'm going to say, I will do videos that are like, how to practice, a little bit about, actually quite a few videos about the basics of Buddhism, all principles that are very valuable in our daily lives right now in 2025. And so I'll do more of those. But for today, my introduction to Buddhism, I just want to base it on an article by Daisaku Ikeda, who's the third president of the Soka Gakkai International. You'll be hearing lots more about him. But this is from an article in a book called Hold Hope, Wage Peace. And it was a book that had many contributions from various peace activists. And his article was called Making Hope. This idea of making hope is what I feel Buddhists do for a living. And many human beings, Buddhists or not Buddhists, they make hope. But specifically in this Buddhism, in Nichiren Buddhism, and again, within the SGI, there's this idea of creating hope. That hope is not a noun or something that comes from the sky that's, oh, I feel some hope today, or that it can sometimes seem like almost a little bit, you don't think of hope as power always. Some people do. Anyway, so when I read this article, it really talks about the action of hope, that hope is an action, that it is a decision. So anyway, the very beginning of it is this paragraph that kind of explains this Buddhism in a nutshell. So he says, the same power which moves the universe exists within our lives. So principle number 1, each individual has immense potential, and a great change in the inner determination of one individual's life has the power to touch the lives of others and transform society. Everything begins with us. So step 1 in Buddhism is to take all your power back, and to recognize that you are made of the same flow as the universe, the same energy. If you are living, breathing right now, you have life in you. You have that same life that is running the whole universe. Now, we have layers of confusion and other things that get in the way of us using that force. But Buddhism explains you got it. You have it already, right? And actually, when you do use that aspect of your lives that's connected to this underlying flow of the universe, we can change everything and anything. Now, the other section, the whole essay is great. I'm going to, once a month, I'm going to do a little newsletter. If you sign up on the website, buddhismtalks.com, the newsletter, I'm going to call it Our Renaissance. It's not going to be anything fancy, but it will be a collection of anything that I've referred to in the month. So any articles, you'll get a copy of the article, or you'll get links to things. So that's what's in the newsletter. If you want any of the things that I've ever said or quoted, that's where it's going to be. So the second, further on in this article, is a couple of more important concepts. He says, when we change our inner determination, everything begins to move in a new direction. We all know this, right? We all know that. We know that feeling of being like flat out on the floor and getting up and saying, I'm going to change this, right? So it's this moment of dynamism, of creativity, right? And he says, the moment we make a powerful resolve, every nerve and fiber in our being will immediately orient itself toward the fulfillment of that goal or desire. Hope, in this sense, is a decision. That is my favorite line, other than the title. So hope is a decision. It's an action. It's not something we wait for. It's something we have that ability within us. It says it is the most important decision, in fact, that we can make. Hope changes everything, starting with our lives. Hope is the force that enables us to take action to make our dreams come true. It has the power to change winter to summer, barrenness to creativity, agony to joy. As long as we have hope, there's nothing we cannot achieve. And when we possess the treasure of hope, we can draw forth our inner potential and strength. A person of hope can always advance. So that is my quick introduction to everything. Basically, what we do as what we can do as human beings. And again, I always say, like Buddhists do this for a living. We make hope, right? So I'm hoping that on this podcast, we can remind everybody of that power, that we can make it for each other, and we can create an environment and an oasis where we're reminded all the time of that incredible, infinite power that we have in our lives. So that's it for this video. There's so many more to come, but thank you for listening. And I look forward to so many great conversations. Thank you so much for listening.